Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Galactic Reviews. This is the review for Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't have much to say on it. I was very indifferent about this movie. It wasn't the worst Thor movie, I think, but to me, it felt more like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, humor-wise, than a serious Thor movie, which at times I enjoyed the humor, but at other times I was like, this is a Thor movie, not really a comedy skit. So I was hoping for a little bit more serious nature, and I just didn't really get that from this movie. So that disappointed me. But other than that, I give this movie like a 6 out of 10. As I said, I don't know if I would rate this the worst Thor movie, but it definitely was not Ragnarok. I think they went a bit too far on the comedic skit for this movie. That's all I've got to say for it right now.
I'll agree with Zach on that bit where they do use too much comedy to where in some moments where it should have been serious, whatever they were trying to go for as a serious moment, it completely gets overshadowed by the comedy that they do almost every 5 seconds in the film. I think the green screen was kind of poorly done, especially in some scenes where you can really tell that it's just horrible. Don't like the bait and switch with Guardians of the Galaxy, with them being in the trailer and shown as like prominent somewhat in the film, and then they're only in there for like 5 minutes with very little dialogue, just for cameos essentially.
I will have to say for that part, I'm a little glad that they weren't in the movie more to categorize this as a Thor movie in and of itself.
Like,
If they
I'm
did
glad
show
about
up at
that
the
too,
end,
but I wish they would have
I
done
would have been
better.
okay with that. But
I'm glad about that too, but I just wish they would have done a better job than just having them in there for 5 seconds and then pulling them right back out. Like, they could have done a way better job than what they did. Some of the stuff that they did in this film, it questions as to why it's why it's in a superhero film. Just with like some of the stuff that happens at Mount Olympus, I think is what it's called, on top of Mount Olympus. There's some stuff that goes on there. Just some of the stuff that
was what is it? Omnipotent City?
I don't remember what it's called, but
I think it was Omnipotent City.
But yeah, just some of the stuff that they did. A lot of continuity errors as far as like, if the hammer could reform, why didn't it reform when Thor needed it and stuff like that? Why did it only reform when Jane Foster needed it? And just some of that stuff like that. If Thor can use his power like that, why didn't he do it in like the first couple Avengers movies, or use it at least after Ragnarok if he knew that the hammer wasn't the only thing that could hold him back and it was whatever he chose? He could have done it. Like, it's just stuff like that. And the scene that they did afterwards when they showed that was an interesting scene and a good scene. It's just the way that they did it. Gore was done poorly, in my opinion, but I'll save all that for later. But yeah, I'll give this a 4 out of 10. I will give it this. It is the best Phase 4 movie I've seen. Besides No Way Home, it's the best Phase 4 movie, if that makes more sense. It's the best Disney Phase 4 movie.
That's fair. I was disappointed only because I wanted this movie to be a introduction into the next saga, big high stakes, super serious action movie. That's what I wanted out of it. That's not what I got out of it. So that's the only reason I came out disappointed. Or I didn't come out disappointed. I was disappointed halfway through. Definitely a comedy. If they were going for a comedy, they should have leaned harder into it. Taika Waititi apparently is like a master at making mockumentaries, is what I think they're called, where it's like kind of like The Office style. And I've heard some people talk about the skits that they came out with when Endgame was coming out, with like what Thor was doing when he wasn't a hero anymore, and it was like roommate Thor skits. And they're saying if they wanted to do a comedy, they should have leaned into that kind of vibe. So that would have been interesting. I enjoyed the storyline of how they brought Jane into it. Yeah, their CGI just has fallen short on so many things, especially all in Phase 4. I think Christian Bale stole the show with his performance.
I'll agree to that, even though I thought his character was poorly written. I think he did steal the show.
I wish we had more time with his character. I wish it wasn't a one-off villain. It had so much potential to be a phenomenal villain, a god killer, and just a one-off.
I think that was part of the problem with his character's writing as well.
Yeah. Other than that, I just wish I had more of him to get fully fleshed out. something that kind of made me kind of be like, all right, about just kind of some of the aspects of the movie was that it's a telling from Korg's perspective. So some of the things like Thor's jealousy later on and some details and perspectives can be skewed because it's Korg's perspective. Now that isn't 100% concretely established that that's what it is, but
I got what you did, Korg, concrete.
they kind of lean into it that that's what's going on. So maybe that's why it's more lackadaisical, whimsical, but it was enjoyable. It was entertaining. It was just not great. And I want great from a Thor epic.
I mean, and they made jokes throughout the movie that this is an epic of Thor. If they
Which
made
isn't
this
bad.
a TV show,
Don't
if
just
they
market it
if
like
they
that.
if they made this a TV show instead of a movie, I
Yeah.
think it would have been better.
Yeah. So just don't market it as whoa when it's a sitcom. So a solid 6, like enjoyable, good acting, funny. Just that's not what people want. Who knows? Maybe phase 5 and 6 will be better. Looks like we're finally getting some vision.
I see what you did there.
I would see it again. It was entertaining.
I
Just
would not.
Not something I would put on for myself.
Out of phase 4 movies, I would probably see this movie again.
I'd rather watch No Way Home like 20 times.
We got Wakanda Forever coming out in November.
The only thing I don't know is I don't know how they're going to do the transition between the Black Panthers. That's the only thing I'm really nervous about for that movie, is how they managed to do the transition, especially since the flower no longer exists.
From what I've seen in the trailer, it looks more like a aftermath thing. The focus seems to be on Wakanda than the Black Panther. Maybe it'll end with a new Black Panther. We'll find out how that works. It looks like we're getting some Ironheart content.
I don't want to see Ironheart. I'd rather see the kid from Iron Man 3 become the next Iron Man.
The only
think
thing
that'd be
I'm
a way
looking
better
forward
character.
to in phase 5, from what I've seen, is
Guardians of the
probably
Galaxy 3.
Daredevil
And I want to.
and Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Daredevil and Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Those
I
are the
wanna
two
s-
biggest ones. I'm kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
that seems cool. I would 100% watch that.
I will say, going back to Thor, some of the problems I do have with the way they did it, like especially during that Mount Olympus scene when they did the spoiler alerts for this movie. I think they had a few problems because like this is supposedly a superhero kind of kid friendly. This is supposed to be somewhat a superhero kid friendly somewhat movie. And then they pulled out the sex orgy thing in the middle of the omnipotent city thing
Oh,
with
yes.
Zeus, with fat Zeus in there.
That was so funny. That was one of the funniest lines.
I
I
was
mean,
like, I don't
it caught
remember
me off
this.
guard, but I was just like, I wasn't expecting that.
Okay.
And then at some point, I was just like, oh, this is where it's come to, hasn't it? Superhero movies are nothing more than a joke. So,
Oh, that was so that was one of the best lines.
why they got to make the best Greek? Why do they got to make the super like the Greek god of Greek gods, the fat guy, and like he owns a Greek deli?
He's aged out.
But Zeus is still freaking Zeus. He should still be freaking Zeus.
Yeah.
But depends on what depiction. I've seen several depictions of Zeus that are unfavorable.
You know, fair.
But I believe in Marvel, he's still pretty favorable in that depiction as far as
That's
Zeus
fair.
goes. Did think Gore was underused. He was like 3 different characters. He was that caring father that turned into the God Killer. And then later on in another scene, he becomes this weird psycho villain out of nowhere. And then he becomes this cartoony villain. And then he goes back to being the loving father when Thor has the brilliant idea, why don't you just wish your daughter to be alive again?
Or you could just wish to, save my girl. But, that's okay.
Well, I mean, at that point, it was Jane's decision to do that.
Yeah, no, I know.
So-
Another thing I didn't like, we finally get to see the missing sieve, and 100% did not like it.
Also didn't like
Uh,
the way they made the joke of everybody's death from previous Thor movies. Would have liked to have seen him kill more gods instead of just the one on screen. The rest of it, we just got to see Aftermath. Would have liked to have actually seen him go and kill gods, hence the God Butcher kind of deal. Would have also liked to seen the sword kind of take him over.
Which apparently, it's not just that. Apparently, all the gods he killed were apparently the good and kind ones. So he didn't help in any way.
Well, except for that sun dude. That sun guy that he
except for
kills
the
at
sun
first.
dude. But all the other ones that are mentioned, they're like, oh yeah, this guy was really nice. He helped the people, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, now he's dead.
Well, yeah, because now he's just in blind rage, and that would have been great to see, like the sword turning his vengeful kind of just rage into
I
like
would,
this
yeah, I
horrible
would have
rage that
enjoyed
where he
a
just
much
doesn't care
better
as long as you're a
fight.
god, you're dead. So
Yeah, a much better
Again,
fight
it's a
between
crime
them.
that he wasn't more fleshed out.
I don't like the way they also depict eternity either. Looked like a horrible still 2D kind of image on a green
It really
screen.
was. It really, really was.
All I can think of is the Rock of Eternity.
Yeah, that's Shazam and
No,
Elvis.
that's Elvis.
No, but he got it from a Shazam comic book.
Yes, yes.
So it is Shazam. I'm right, Andrew.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, the OG Captain Marvel, the good one.
No, I
Yes,
like,
I
I
went
like the
there.
name Shazam as well. Shazam as well.
He
So,
can't be called Shazam because that's what he has to say. That's why they called him Captain Marvel, and the wizard's name was Shazam. Might sound weird. I didn't like the whole them shoehorning in the whole Korg being gay, him having gay dads, and then Valkyrie being lesbian
well, with Valkyrie,
and being
like we
called
already knew
king
that.
instead of queen. I don't quite get that, but
Well, we haven't seen a female species of Korg, so we don't even know if there's more than one gender. I mean, they're rocks. I don't even know if you can call that a gender.
The first off, like I'm still trying to process, like they hold each other's hands for like 2 weeks in the like a middle of a volcano, and thus
And
another
the
rock
melting
forms.
sediment creates another life form.
it's not very well explained.
I
All
mean,
right.
we already knew that Valkyrie was more than likely lesbian anyways.
That's because the actress doesn't know how to act and can't shut her trap.
I
But yeah,
will
no, I
say
just
I
didn't think I just
enjoyed
didn't think it was necessary. That is my thing. It just was weirdly put in there.
honestly the whole movie in and of itself was a lot of like weird moments. So I didn't really I thought it was interesting, but I didn't like the fact of his acts being jealous of him over Mjolnir.
When did the
I
axe
thought
and the
that
hammer
was
become sentient?
I thought
Again,
that was,
that
a
the
little
only
weird.
way I've seen someone explain that is, oh, it's through Korg's telling. So things are perspectives may be skewed, but like
I will say for
Again.
Mjolnir,
comedy,
yeah.
this sitcom, that's it.
I will say for
But it's
Mjolnir, I
okay. But
enjoyed
what I'm
the
saying is,
fact-
it should have been a superhero movie kind of deal instead of trying to make it. If you're gonna make it a comedy, at least put that in the trailer instead of making this epic superhero
Yeah,
movie and then
yeah.
doing this bait and switch.
yeah, no, 100%.
So that's what I'm mainly angry about, and that's what I'm kind of going at it for.
I think one of the only things I enjoyed from Mjolnir is how it would shatter and just attack people and then reform. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I would say
Out
that's
of all
cool.
the things, that's probably the coolest thing out of this whole movie.
Yeah.
Next being the fact of you get to see Hercules at the end, probably
Yeah.
hunting down to kill Thor. And I'm like, that's potentially exciting. But after watching this movie, I'm not really sure. I don't know
Yeah, no.
if they're going to continue with the sitcom. It
I
looks
sure
like
hope they
it's-
get him hunting down. Dude, I love that actor. He's so good. I want to see him.
It's just I don't know. I hope Phase 5 will explain more of what's going on with villains.
I doubt it.
Which another movie that I'm somewhat excited for Phase 5, Blade, because I've watched all of the original Blade movies and they were good, and I'm hoping they do them justice. But don't know.
I don't want to be that guy, but after seeing all the stuff from Phase 4, want to bet?
I mean, yeah, but I hate to be like this. You can cut this.
I probably
Blade,
won't, but keep going.
there's nothing you can really do to mess up Blade. First off, he's black, so he's already typecasted properly. So what else can you do?
I have
He's
no
just
idea.
he's just a badass that goes around killing vampires.
I have no idea, but I thought that about a lot of characters, and look at what they've done to them.
I mean, I will say
Like
Black
even in
Panther-
this movie, Thor
back
kind of
and
wasn't
forth.
Thor in this movie.
Yeah, for Black Panther, I was kind of back and forth of whether or not I liked it or didn't like it. There were a lot of moments I did like it, and there were a lot of moments I didn't. It just didn't feel like the character Black Panther all that much at times.
Yeah, I did like Chadwick
Kind of
Boseman because he's
standoffish.
I've seen Chadwick Boseman in like 42. I've liked him in that,
Yeah, no,
and I
he's a
think he's a
great actor.
phenomenal actor.
He did a great job with his part. I just don't
Yeah.
think the writing for it was all that great.
I don't think the story was all that good, and writing wasn't that great, but I thought it was decently acted. It
Mhm.
was just I thought the writing and story was terrible, and the CGI at
So
some points wasn't the greatest either.
I'm really concerned about the next Wakanda movie,
Well,
or Black
from what I
Panther
can see
movie.
from the trailer, this might sound pity and kind of weird. This might sound a little bit kind of like nitpicky and stuff, but it seems like they're banking off of the whole tragedy of Chadwick Boseman to kind of sell this movie.
Well, originally I thought they canceled the idea of having another Black Panther movie.
No, they
when he
canceled
died.
recasting him.
Okay,
They canceled. They didn't want to recast him, which I think is kind of.
which
I
is
think it's
why
kind
I
of
thought they would
dumb,
just
but
drop not doing another Black Panther movie. Like you don't want to recast him, so you're not just going to do another one.
well,
But
no,
they
they want to
are,
give
so I
Shuri or
don't.
some other. They want to give somebody else the torch. People
Yeah,
are
but they're
speculating
not
Shuri
Black
because
Panther.
that's what's been done recently in comics, I believe.
Yeah, but
So
as I've said before, they don't have another flower unless they come up with some random reason of how they find a flower
yeah, because they
to
did
give
ruin
her the
that in the
power.
comics. He didn't need
Also,
a. It wasn't like a flower.
well,
It
yeah.
was just he was
Also,
just that skilled.
yeah. Also, I mean, at that point, I'm pretty sure you need to train your whole life to have the possibility of becoming Black Panther in this writing of it. And from what I know, she has not that much training at all. She's more of a scientist and not a fighter. So if they make her Black Panther, I'll be really confused. There's much better options
I think Manape
the
would do it, but I don't know.
like the leader of the guards, whatever her name is.
Okoye, I don't think
Yeah.
she'd do it. I don't think.
No, but I'm just saying she would be a better option.
No, I would think Manape would be a better option, in all
I mean, that's all,
honesty.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
But
I'd be okay with that too. Anyone with combat experience. And if they choose her, I just don't see it working. Not really sure where the next Guardians of the Galaxy takes place, if it's before or after this Thor movie.
I would assume after.
But either way, it seems from the little bit we saw from the Thor movie, it could just be Grog's explanation of it. It seems kind of like a mess in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So I don't really know.
But back to Thor. I mean, I just don't like the way they handled his character. Like ever since Ragnarok, he's become more of a comedy bit instead of an actual like character like he was in 1, 2, Avengers and all that kind of stuff. Where he actually
Yeah,
felt like
once
he had
they did Endgame, he
Yeah.
slowly started to become more
I would argue once they did Ragnarok, he was slowly more of a
mean,
comedy bit than more of a
Ragnarok to me was a good mix because
it was a
Thor,
good mix of both worlds because it did
this-
have the
yeah,
it did have
in the
its
second-
comedy aspect of like this movie did, but it also like kept it in check with the real like
Mhm.
solid moments, like when Odin died, which they
Ragnarok
kind of
had
just made a joke in this film anyway. Like with Odin's death, Loki's death, what's his face, Heimdall's death, basically all the deaths that basically led Thor to this moment, kind of just was nothing more than a 2-second joke at the beginning, which
I
kind of
just-
puts it on what Andrew said. It's more of a reboot sitcom or whatever
Yeah.
instead of an actual superhero, like a good, taking itself kind of seriously but still having fun with it superhero movie. That it should have been, you know.
To be honest, in my opinion, Morbius had better combat than Thor.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not even gonna argue.
Also, I don't really like the fact that he just gives his power freely just to random people now. Even if it's
Well,
temporary.
that also breaks canon. So, because
I-
then you could have done that if you could have done that in the first Avengers film. That kind of makes you wonder, like, why didn't he do this before if he knew he could? And if you argue that he didn't know how powerful he was as a god, well, I'll give you that. But he did he did it right after Ragnarok because that's when he found out about his whole power set. So why didn't he do that in like Infinity War? When he could have easily just given it to many Wakandans in that last fight. Or he could have given it to all the other Asgardians on the ship to help fight the Black Order. It breaks the continuity no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah, it was a little weird in that aspect. And even when they did it, like the fight sequence they had with the children seemed very sloppy. It was like you guys just didn't really need to have this in there.
Which I thought that
Uh,
was honestly, I thought that was kind of a fun scene that they could have done really well and made it funny and interesting at the same time. But it kind of was sloppy in some areas.
Like only in like one or two shots that I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And
Yeah.
then the rest of it was kind of like, it's kind of sloppy. All in all, it was nice to see the character Jane Foster again.
Well, yeah, Natalie Portman wanted that money.
Still, I don't understand Sif having her just appear again and then one scene and then make that whole serious moment a joke and then her disappear again.
Yeah, because it
I
doesn't
was
really
just
make any.
like,
It
I
doesn't make any
don't-
sense. She was an Asgardian. She would know about that.
She was the leader of most of their military.
Alongside the Warriors 3 was essentially what she was.
Yeah, and then
Alongside
if
Thor,
you bring
Loki, and the
if-
Warriors 3.
Exactly. If you bring her in now, then where was she during Ragnarok? But other than that, I don't have much to say for this movie. If you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. It's probably going to be your most disappointing Thor movie. Just be prepared for a sitcom.
I mean, I still think The Dark World is pretty bad.
I mean, it is, but I don't. For a Thor movie, it's a lot more serious than this movie. If you want to watch like a sitcom,
That's
just
fair,
be
that's fair.
mentally prepared that
It
this
has
is
no
not
connection
a serious movie.
I need to
at all.
rewatch the
whatsoever.
Thor movies.
to
I need to
anything.
rewatch the Thor movies because I thought they were good. So
It
I like
has-
the Thor. I like the first two Thor movies. So I thought they were good. Like
Dark Age wasn't
Thor
bad,
movies.
but Ragnarok was probably the best one out of the four of them now. Mostly because it had a good combination of comedy and serious and action. It was just a very well-made script.
yeah, I mean, but I like the seriousness of Thor. That's one thing I did like was the
Yeah.
seriousness of Thor with the little off bits of comedy when he was just throwing mugs in diners because he didn't know the whole thing
No,
about like the
100%.
culture. I thought that kind of stuff was funny and done well in Thor. In the second Thor,
It was.
in Ragnarok it was weird.
In Ragnarok,
But it wasn't-
it was
it
like
wasn't
he was starting
horrible.
to get cocky again just a little bit, but
It felt more Disney MCU-ified, if that makes sense, than all the
yeah,
other
but
Thor movies.
honestly, it's probably one of their best Disney MCU.
Well, that's
um,
because that was when they actually respected the character to some degree and made it
Well,
well
that
done
too.
and well made.
I mean, Stanley still had in the movie at that point.
Yeah.
So Phase 4 has been a train wreck. I hope they've noticed that, and going into Phase 5, they have a little bit more thought. Whether or not that'll happen is beyond my knowledge.
I don't like to be this guy, but judging by them like ignoring all the wonderful decades of characters that they could use and then immediately going to these new characters that they recently made and recently had comic books that like were horrible trash, nobody would buy them, and they're going on to those characters instead of the other characters that they could use that were well loved in the 80s and 90s. I don't think they know what they're doing, or they're trying to push something and nobody's going to buy it.
I don't know how they're going to bring Blade in unless he's hunting down Morbius.
No, they kind of hinted towards him in Eternals.
I don't.
He's going to be apparently training Black Knight. Thank you for tuning in to Galactic Reviews. Join us next time. We'll be watching Terror on the Prairie, and we will see you next time on Galactic Reviews.